Hello everyone, my name is Anitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon spoilers video. So over the past couple of days we got some new bits of news and we got some new spoilers, so let's just go over them. First, starting off with the spoilers, starting with Palamon here. Palamon is a pretty decent Digimon. She is a green level 3 Digimon, stat-wise doing nothing too special, but what is really special about the card is the fact that she has a really powerful When Destroyed ability. So her When Destroyed ability is you get to choose one Digimon with Palamon from your trash and put it on the bottom of a green Digimon's evolution source. So this is really powerful because we already know that green has been playing a lot with the Digiburst mechanic, and that mechanic allows you to use your evolution source as basically an extra resource to trigger your abilities. So having a way to just put cards back into your evolution source allows you to set up more Digiburst potential. So that's one really good and powerful aspect of the card because it shows that they're willing to play with putting cards back into the evolution source. And this is definitely a really good way to start off play around with that type of ability. And then on top of which, the other big aspect of the card is even if you're not utilizing the Digiburst mechanic, you could utilize the starter deck Palamon to just put an extra instance of that ability underneath your Digimon for just some additional benefit and additional power. So regardless on how you utilize this card, it's still going to be a really interesting card depending on what you're going to be pairing it up with, and I definitely think this is going to be a pretty decent card to be playing around with. Next up, we have Catastrophe Canon. So Catastrophe Canon is looking to be a pretty decent black option card. It costs 4 with the main ability of you get to choose one of the opponent's Digimon and de-digivolve it by 2. So this is pretty good considering we have Spider Shooter, which is a black option card that costs 3 and de-digivolves by 1. So for 1 extra memory, we get to de-digivolve by 1 more. So this is already looking to be a pretty good trade-off, just because we're setting the opponent that much farther behind by being able to de-digivolve them by 1 extra stage. And then on top of which, this even has the added benefit where if you have a diaboromon in play, then you get to play a diaboromon token for free. And that's just really powerful because this is an option card that actually leaves a body on board, similarly to how I like to think of on Play Digimon, where they're more just option cards where they just also are attached to a body. But this is actually an option card that leaves a body, so I really like that ability to this card. The only unfortunate thing is I do think this is kind of a win more card where it does require you to have a diaboromon in play to play a diaboromon token, but there's so many things that diaboromon does with his tokens that it's still really good for those diaboromon decks. I just think if you're not playing a diaboromon deck, this card isn't necessarily going to be your first pick, just because you do have a little bit better cards if you're trying to utilize de-digivolve as a mechanic or a source of removal. So I definitely think that this is more geared towards that Diaboromon deck, but it's still a really good card for the Diaboromon deck. And then on top of all of that, it even has the nice security ability of activating its main effect. So being able to de-digivolve on the opponent's turn and being able to spawn a Diaboromon token potentially on the opponent's turn is still really good, even though the token won't exactly be doing a whole lot and it won't trigger any of your abilities because most of the abilities that trigger with a Digimon with the same name entering the field is on your turn, so the token won't really be able to do much if it's being spawned on the opponent's turn, but nonetheless, being able just to spawn a token on the opponent's turn potentially is still really powerful because, again, all of the things that Diaboromon can do with those tokens. So I definitely really like the card. I think this card's really good for those Diaboromon decks, and I think this is just a medium card if you're not playing those Diaboromon decks. Next up, we have Pikmon. So Pikmon is a pretty solid yellow digitama because he has this really nice inheritable skill of when attacking, when you have 3 or more Digimon in play, then you get to choose one of the opponent's Digimon and minus 1000 DP until the end of the turn. So this is definitely looking like it's going to be playing with the whole yellow swarm strategy that we see slowly forming, where they just have so many on-attack skills play Digimon, and then you could pair that up with one another, and then you have a couple of decent on-play Digimon, where you're just going to have this like go wide board, and this definitely is a card that's going to be benefiting for those go wide strategies. And I don't know exactly if this is going to see a whole lot of play, but it's definitely a really good card to consider, considering those go wide strategies aren't exactly playing a whole lot of minus DP instances. So this could be good, this could not be good. I don't exactly know. It all depends on the other types of cards that support this type of strategy and what other cards you're utilizing in your deck to make this good or not. But I definitely like the direction that it's going, and I definitely think it is a solid card to think about nonetheless. And then the last card that we got spoiled over the past couple of days is going to be a new yokomon. So this version of yokomon is looking to be in green. So this is the green digitama, and it has a really decent inheritable ability where during your turn, when this card is discarded from your evolution source due to the Digiburst mechanic, then you get to choose one of your Digimon and give it plus 2000 DP until the end of the turn. So again, green has been playing a lot with Digiburst, so it's no surprise that they have another Digitama that interacts with it. Except this time, if it was used for the Digiburst ability, then you're going to be giving one of your Digimon plus 2000 DP. It doesn't specify this Digimon, so you could choose any of your Digimon on the field and give it this 2000 DP buff, and that could be pretty big depending on how you set it up and the cards that you use. So I definitely think if you're playing with the Digiburst mechanic, this is definitely one of the better Digitama that you could be playing around with, just because you'll still be gaining some benefit for using your Digiburst mechanic, and you don't feel bad about getting rid of this card because this card does something when you get rid of it. So I definitely really like what this card is doing for Digiburst, and I definitely think this card is going to see quite a bit of play for those Digiburst style of decks. Alright, on to the news segment part of the video. So it looks like for the English version of the game, we are getting BT04 and BT05 pushed back a little bit. This really shouldn't come as a big shock to anyone, considering 1.5 and 1.0 are getting pushed back, and it only just makes sense to push back the others to let those products breathe a little bit more. So we now are going to be getting BT04 on May 28th. So it's late May instead of early May, and I'm guessing the starter decks are also going to be delayed to this date as well. That's not confirmed or anything, that's just a guesstimation. And then on top of which, we are going to be getting BT05, Battle of Omni, in July, late July to be precise, on July 23rd. Next up, we have a new sweepstakes that Bandai Premium is going to be running, where you could enter to win basically all of the cards shown. It's kind of like a little bit of a crossover sweepstakes, where you'll get some Dragon Ball cards and you'll also get some Digimon cards if you're one of the lucky winners. There's going to be a decent amount of winners, so hopefully a lot of these cards can get out. But in terms of the Digimon side of things, it's basically going to be promo pack 0.0, and then you'll just so happen to get some Dragon Ball Super cards on top of it. So it's definitely really nice that they're doing this just to get these cards out, because these cards are relatively highly sought after, and some of them are actually pretty decent to play, especially with the limited amount of options we have for 1.0. So it's definitely nice to get these cards out, and it's definitely nice of Bandai to be running another sweepstakes. Next up, we have a new product announcement of a new playmat. So it is going to be a nice looking Wargreymon playmat that you can get in late August with a combo pack, where you're basically just buying a whole bunch of boosters and this playmat, and it's going to be about $34. So you could ask your LGS to see if they could pre-order them for you now. So that's just something interesting to think about. And then we also got some unfortunate news that the starter decks 1 through 3, which is going to be red, blue, and yellow, they are going to be getting delayed to be paired up with 1.5 come March. So we will not be getting starter decks in LGS's in the month of February. So that is a little bit unfortunate, but is totally understandable considering the starter decks were already delayed to be paired up with 1.5 initially. So it's getting that same exact delay again. So while it is unfortunate, we do have to understand that things are currently a little bit harder than they normally would have been due to the global pandemic. So we do have to be patient and we do have to wait. And please, please, please do not buy overpriced starter decks online. Please be patient. 1.0 is coming, and there will be plenty of ways to play the game when more stock of 1.0 is coming. And then, like I said in a previous video, we are getting reprints of 1.0 and 1.5, so there'll be plenty of Digimon to go around in the later months. We just have to be patient, and we just have to wait. And then lastly, coming from Twitter, we have some new information in regards to BT06 or Double Diamond. So we have 3 bullet points that they went over, and the first one states that more popular Digimon, such as Royal Knights and Movie Digimon, are going to be making their appearance. So there's just a ton of Digimon that they could pull just from those 2 categories alone, because for the most part, I believe a lot of the Digimon movies were relatively decent. And there's still just a whole bunch of Royal Knights that they have left to use, so just more Digimon is always a good thing. And then on top of which, the second point that they go over is that we are going to be getting new effects like option cards that can be used at any timing. So this is a really, really interesting and really, really dangerous thing for them to be playing around with, considering just the way the memory system works doesn't allow for a whole lot of interaction. Like, we already have a decent amount of interaction just based on how security works as a whole, and based around effects that are able to trigger on the opponent's turn for the opponent doing something. So we already do have some form of interaction, but the fact that they're going to be trying to up the level of interaction with option cards, being able to be played at any time, is definitely very, very interesting and very, very dangerous, because at best we get like a couple of new defensive tools that we could start thinking about and utilizing, and at worst we get something like counterspells and hand traps, where it basically just makes the game completely not fun and completely disrupts the opponent and what they're able to do. So it's a very, very dangerous thing for them to be tackling this type of mechanic, and I'm curious to see where they go with it. But again, handled very, very poorly, it could definitely make the game not very fun very quickly. So I'm being cautiously optimistic about what this could mean, considering we just don't have a whole lot of information. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but I definitely think this is something the game didn't exactly need. But again, I'm curious to see where they'll go with it. And then bullet point 3 is kind of a throwout, considering we already knew that we're going to be getting alt arts based on the voting results and voting contests from Japan. So this isn't necessarily new information, it's just information that's being reassured. We just have to wait and see who is the winners of those voting contests and what's getting reprinted as an alt art box topper for BT06. So that's all of the news and spoilers that we got over the past couple of days, and I still think BT05 is definitely looking like it's going to be a really interesting set, and I'm excited to see where the game goes with BT06, considering it's sounding like this is going to be a really interesting set overall, and I'm definitely excited to see what Digimon has in store in the future. So, as always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.